listening to Unfiltered with Muhammad Uncut, a podcast about personal growth and authentic leadership. If you're looking for tips on how to manage others, get ahead, and make your way up the corporate ladder, this is not the show for you. This podcast is about being of service to others, leading from the heart, and evolving into a better version of yourself. Each episode brings you motivated stories about unfiltered leadership and authentic leaders, those who involve others, use their influence to amplify diverse perspectives, and inspire teams to achieve collective results. If this sounds like you, keep listening. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Unfiltered podcast, and welcome to my incredibly unfiltered guest, Shaneé Moret. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I know that we had to reschedule last week, but I think that that's kind of like a good premise of this conversation, is that it's good to be flexible and just go with the flow.
Certainly. And I appreciate that you're flexible to, make the time for me today. And I'm so excited about talking about who you are and your journey and your story. And I know for a lot of my listeners, they already know who Shaneé Moret is. You're no stranger to social media, definitely not to LinkedIn. And, I know you've been on other podcasts, but I think I'll start out by saying, and I think it's intentional when I say, when I was trying to Google you, when I was trying to learn more about my guests, hey, I need to introduce them with a bio. I noticed you were very minimalistic, and I thought, this person is intentional.
Yes.
Right? And I'll get into that. And so what I was able to get on who you are is what you've been through and your story. The fact that you did form a company around healthcare, right? Snake Media. And, we'll talk about that as well. But really, this is an opportunity for me to listen and to ask you, Shaneé, what makes you get up in the morning and want to make a difference to the world?
I think that it's just innately, growing up, I had cancer, right? So I went through stage 4 cancer, and just like when you go through something like that, you have this innate awareness of your mortality. So I feel like a lot of people in their late 20s, like I am, they're still kind of like unaware of that, because they've never had to face any type of experience to remind them of that. So for me, it's just like I'm aware of the fact that I have a limited amount of time, and I'm also very clear on what I want to accomplish within that time, which is to inspire at least 1 billion people to live better lives. And there's ways to go into that, but it's funny that you mentioned that my bio is minimalistic, because when people invite me on podcasts and they tell me to send a bio, it's like when I send like 3 sentences, they're like, "Can you make it longer?" And it's just like, I feel like the bio doesn't do anything. Like, you can't really put who you are in a bio, and who's really going to read that, right? So I feel like this experience, like a listening experience and getting to know somebody and that genuine connection, really could never compare to just like reading someone's bio. It's not who someone is. I feel like someone is what they do and not what they say they are.
It's amazing how wise your response is. And I wouldn't expect anything different, but I do want to call out the fact that you, as you mentioned, you're in your late 20s. And most of us in our late 20s, that seems a little while ago, we're concerned with where we're going to spend the evening and who we're going out with and how much fun we're going to have. And I know my 20s was always playing catch up to, hey, what's the day going to bring, right? And then in your 30s, you start thinking, oh, maybe I got to settle down. I got to get that job. I've got to, start a family. So you start becoming more reflective. By 40s, you're thinking, how well have I done? So I know that from the experiences that you've gone through, from the way you speak and present yourself, those experiences help move you to a position where you're very reflective on what life has given you. And you're not taking it for granted. For someone in their 20s to say that I have a limited amount of time, we think we're immortal in our 20s. We think, right?
It's insane.
Right? And yet I think that what life has given you, and you call it life has given me challenge after challenge, but you haven't backed down. You didn't let it, you, you may have been broken, but you built yourself back up. And to what you've said, sometimes when we're in a dark place, we feel buried, but you say something different actually.
Yeah, I feel like if you don't have, my second video ever on LinkedIn, and it's kind of in a reflective kind of state right now because I posted my first video ever on LinkedIn, and I think it was like the day after or like the day before Thanksgiving in 2018. So it's coming up in like almost 2 years exactly. And a lot has happened in 2 years. And I always say like change is inevitable, but growth is optional. Like I love that quote. And people look at what's happened, what's changed in the growth in my life in the last 2 years, and they only see the growth. They don't see, the behind the scenes, the relentless work ethic and stuff that I have. But I really feel like a lot of people kind of don't see the value of their scars or of like whatever dark periods that they've had in their life. Because with that comes with the ability to relate to others. So if I would have never gone through those times, I wouldn't be able to relate to a lot of people that are currently in those times and to help lift them up. So I feel like you have to use what you have, and what makes you different is often your greatest strength. And for some reason, a lot of people kind of mask their darkness in a sense, or mask the challenges that they've gone through, or mask the decisions that have maybe delayed growth in their life, like immature decisions or whatever. So they don't really step into who they are, and then they're inauthentic and people don't relate to them, and then they're just living kind of with a mask on, figuratively and now physically, right?
And you're so right, because you say change is going to happen whether or not we decide to embrace it.
100%.
Right? But do we want to grow? Will we choose to grow? Will we choose, people think that growth is all about getting better, that growth is about expanding, right? But in order for you to grow, you're going to have to bury yourself and plant yourself, as I've heard you say, right? Like, in that dark place, rather than feel like it's our grave, we can feel like it's the place where the ground, the earth, 100%. That's going to give us life, where we'll be planted, and we can reach out for the sun and, nurture ourselves so that we could push out of the earth and grow again. And there's a bit of pain in pushing through the earth and coming out. But I love the way that you relate going through a challenge or being in a dark place to being able to relate to others to help you. To me, that sounds very empathetic, right?
Yeah.
But can you explain to me why you feel it's important that you believe you can relate better to others because you've been also in those dark places?
Because, okay, another life lesson I learned, like at a very young age because of cancer, was suffering is just a part of life, and people suffer in different ways. So people suffer, they may suffer financially, emotionally, physically, mentally. And sometimes the only way you can relate to somebody to help them is relate through their suffering. It's like their vulnerability. It's where you can connect with them, and where they may really give you that moment to stop and listen to you, and maybe just take your guidance to be able to change their life as well. Wow. So I feel like that's important.
Sometimes I think about it. You'd be sitting in a room and having a good time with your friends. You look around you and you think, oh, wow, I'm so lucky. Look at all these people around me. But the minute that you start unpacking your darker stories and kind of the pains that you're having, you look around, you're like, oh, there's not 100 people. There's like maybe one or two.
Right.
But maybe sometimes we only need those one or two people, because we 100%. Know that, right? It's those people that stick by us when things are good and when things are not as good, that we know those people are truly there for us, right?
Yeah. And I've seen, I have people around me that I would say like they change their friends, like they change their underwear, like that, they're
flavor of the day.
Yeah, they give so much energy to other people. And that's really like where you say like the growth and the planting. a lot of people like were very like when I really started to change my life, I had to kind of plant in the sense of becoming like almost extremely selfish. So I had to be very careful of like, okay, like, am I going to meet this friend for coffee for 3 hours and talk about nothing really? Or and then like a lot of people just say yes because they'll feel guilty if they say no, or am I going to like really double down and hone down on doing what I need to do to like build my dreams because nobody's going to do it for me. And I had a lot of pushback and I had a lot of people and then when you start getting the results, people are like, oh, you've changed. It's like, no, you've just become focused on what you need to do. And 2 years later, they really obviously respected that. And, some of those same people now obviously come to me maybe for help, which is fine. But like, I wouldn't be able to help people if I had never become kind of like selfish with my time and with my focus. I would have just been giving all my time to everybody and not doing anything to build anything of substance.
And I mean, I guess, is it being selfish or being aware, to go back to what you were saying earlier, right?
Right.
I think it's because we're told so often that if
we're told it's selfish.
We're told it's selfish. But in listening to you, I think you started by talking. It's about self-awareness, and I think that's where we start recognizing the value of what we have in this world is by that awareness. Mm-hmm. If I may ask, you mentioned it a couple of times, so I'm seeking permission here to dig a bit deeper.
Yeah.
You said 2 years ago. Is that when you were faced with stage 4 cancer, or was this something before?
No. So that was I had cancer when I was a child, like so like on and off, but those were just like life lessons. Like I wasn't kind of like naive as a child in the sense that like I had already gone through suffering, like the home was more, or the hospital was more my home than anything. I'd gone through multiple surgeries, like I understood pain and stuff like that. So those were just like, I think like reflecting on why I may think differently or have a different perspective. It's probably because I was impacted by that at an early age. But no, 2 years ago and change is when I, like my boss gave me an ultimatum. So my daughter just had the flu. She was in the hospital and like for multiple days. So on like the 10th day, my boss gave me an ultimatum and was like, listen, we need you at work. So it's like you return to work or you lose your job. So I just quit. Yeah, I quit right there. I never went back. And then that night while my daughter was just like laying in the hospital crib and I'm like sitting in the chair in the room, because they didn't have a bed for me to sleep in the room with her, I grabbed my laptop because I was doing like marketing and copywriting for the place I was working at. And, you scroll social media, you see all these people being able to make money online. Like, I would see that. So I was like, why wouldn't I be able to do it also? I have the skill set. Why not take the chance? So that's when I actually got on LinkedIn, and 5 weeks later, I got my first retainer check for my first client.
Wow.
And the retainer check was more than what I would have made the whole month at my previous job.
Amazing.
And when I got that check, I was like, okay, like, I mean, it's not just in my head. Like I could actually do this. Like, this is like, that was my point of no return. Like, this is a skill set that I'm going to build. I'm going to be able to do this online business and make money online and stuff like that. So that was probably around August or July of 2018. And then I wasn't even creating content at the time. I was just like doing outreach and stuff on LinkedIn. And then November, coming up on 2 years, is when I posted my first video. And then I was consistent. So I just posted the second one the day after and the third one the day after. And I was getting like immense response and immense like inbound interest with business. So I'm a person that like, I saw that change and I'm like, okay, this works. So I'm going to do it 10 times more. Like, I'm not going to stop, And then that's when like the game changed for me. And I've just been building it ever since.
And the it here is MedSnake Media, is, you know, your business. And so can you tell me a bit about that? Because I have a feeling it came from your response to being put in a position to choose between what you needed to choose, which is your daughter, or to go back to a job, a lousy job, and a lousy manager or boss who was asking you to do something unethical. So does MedSnake Media offer solutions to people who are in that position? Is that kind of where the...
So no, I kind of like fused. So MedSnake Media was the first company I co-founded in December of 2018. What I kind of fused was my passion for copywriting and then my cognizance of the healthcare space, because I lived in the healthcare space for several years. You know,
That's
I know
what you did. Oh, okay. From your
yeah.
previous
So
got it.
we off through MedSnake Media, like we offer marketing and medical billing services to, you know, nursing homes and healthcare companies and stuff like that. So that was the first company I co-founded. And then as I grew, like, so this April, I just started getting like a ton of requests. Hey, do you have a course? Do you have a system? Do you have a program where I can learn how to grow on LinkedIn? Because I was growing immensely fast, you know, and people were coming to me. So then the first kind of lockdown hit, and it was like I was getting like 50 to 100 messages a week with the same question.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, well, it's definitely time to, because I'm a person that notices needs. So I was like, it's definitely time to do something. So then now my primary focus, like I'm still on the board at MedSnake, but my primary focus is Growth Academy, which is where we're not only helping people learn how to grow on LinkedIn, but I'm going to be dropping courses every month where it's like, you know, how to network online. Because when you look at the data, if people don't know how to thrive online in, you know, 2021, it's going to be extremely difficult for them to live a fulfilling life.
Right. I think that's a good point. You didn't say 2020, because 2020 has really been that year where I don't want to use the word pivot. I don't want to use the word shift, but it's really been the year where we were pushed up against the wall. And for the longest time, we couldn't move.
Right.
And then we started looking a bit. We got flexibility that we could look to the right and look to the left and realize, okay, I'm either going to get stuck with my back up against the wall, or I'm going to have to do something to move forward. And, you know, I still feel like 2020 for a lot of us is still a bit of inching forward. You've beyond inched from the get-go, from when the lockdown was really just starting here in North America. You propelled yourself forward. And, you know, and I love this story because a lot of us just kind of wait for the right moment. You made that moment. To your point, you saw the needs.
100%.
So yeah, so make it realistic for a lot of your, you know, my listeners who think that the time has to be near perfect. How do they know? How do you see these needs, and how did you respond?
I mean, I was getting the messages like over and over again. And I was like, okay, well, this is something that people definitely want, but they also need. Like, where else are they going to learn this from somebody that's actually done it at the level that I have? In the time span that I have as well. So of course they're coming to me to ask, you know, it was just like a natural thing that was occurring. So then it was like lockdown. So there's no studios and all, you know, they're all closed. So I was like, well, like I'm still going to do it. I don't care. Like I have all of the steps that people can take. Like, I mean, I have to give this to the people, right? So then I did it, you know, I did it with this background and I was like, I want to give people more than they could ever imagine. And I started looking at the data because like I'm somebody that also like wants to always provide more value. So what I was seeing is like a lot of the people are buying courses. They don't finish them because they don't have like an accountability system to apply what they learn. So that's like a huge thing. If they don't apply what they learn, then they obviously don't get the results that maybe, you know, the course promised or whatever. So I don't want that. On top of that, it was the pandemic. So, you know, people that have similar courses were charging like, you know, 1,000, 5,000, blah, blah, blah. So I just completely went blue ocean strategy. I put together 40 videos, and I'm just like, listen, this is more than a course. So when people join Growth Academy, they also get the community. So we have a private Slack group. We have daily accountability reminders, live weekly trainings from me, bi-weekly Q&As with me and like other experts. And then I was just like, you know what? It's $29 a month. You could cancel anytime.
Wow. It's probably a coffee a day, not even,
yeah,
right?
I was like, and I even went further, and I was like, and if you don't like it, we'll give you your money back. Like, that's it.
See,
I
that's
went
that
completely
authenticity.
blue ocean.
I love that authenticity because, when you speak, you've got a resilience to the way that you present yourself, Shaneé, but also it's with the humility and authenticity. And I think that's how most of us forget to show up these days. And I'm going to be very transparent here. I started myself jumping into LinkedIn a few years ago and only really becoming aware of LinkedIn. And then I took a hiatus, tried to get into politics in Canada. And then as I was coming back, you realize it can be a great place to grow your business. Can be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I say can be is because you have to learn what are the tricks. You mentioned about the data. You mentioned it's right consistency. Right, and we know that there's algorithms and there's ways that it works and doesn't work. But it's not only competitive, but not everyone is coming from a place of plenty with the best interests of mind of the people that they serve. And that kind of leads me to the question of, you've taken a leadership role here. When you talk about, you've gone blue ocean and you given people a choice, take this, learn from it. It's only $29, less than your coffee. If you don't like it, we'll give you your money back, leave, right? It's not, to your point, it's not 1,500 or 5,000, because this is pandemic.
People have called me insane. Like, I mean, a lot of people, my colleagues, are just like, you could sell this for like $10,000. And I'm just like, I don't want to. Like, I want people to have access to it. Like, how are you going to do that when people are in a pandemic? Like, I actually want people to learn, because for me, it's also not just about the first purchase. Like, that's negligent. For me, it's about the connection and the results that, like, that one person could now become like an ambassador, tell 20 of their friends, and then what does that lead to? 100 more opportunities. Like, I'm thinking long-term and actually helping people, not just like short-term gain.
And why does it matter? I know I shouldn't be asking you this because it should be common sense, but a lot of us maybe don't put the fact that making a positive difference in somebody else's life is the first. But it sounds like that's kind of the thing that matters most to you. Why does that matter to you?
I feel like because it's so needed right now, like people on LinkedIn, I see some people complaining that, like, why does inspirational content do so well? And it's like, well, we're in a global pandemic. People are isolated, and what they don't want is more stats and statistics and like all of these numbers being thrown at them. And what they need is somebody to step up and be like the light in their darkness. And that's who they're going to follow, just based on the data. People are following influencers who, A, they can relate to, and who, B, are positive. And that's just 88% of the people on LinkedIn. They want positive data, or they want positive, like, people to follow, and they want content that's going to help them improve.
Right. So you've taken your personal story of pain and vulnerability, and you've put that in the context of a business strategy. Because, right, to the same way that you can relate to somebody because you've gone through that brokenness and through the difficulties and pain, and that makes it relevant when you're working with others. You've done that from a business sense. And I think that's incredibly smart business sense, right? If you're building a brand around this vulnerability, that it also matters to help others. I think that's a great brand to build.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not many people pick up on that. So you definitely have that awareness. But I tell people, I'm like, listen, anyone can replicate a product. Anyone can replicate a service. Anyone can replicate price. What they can't replicate is how you position your brand with your personal story, because it's unique to you. And that's really your strength. And a lot of people don't do that. They're too general. I mean, we do a lot of LinkedIn profile audits, and just like in the about, in the headline, like it all sounds the same. I have no idea what you do. There's no clarity. I have no idea why you do it, and I have no idea how you're different, or how, you're
Mm,
going above and beyond for your markets. So if you don't know these things, like, it all starts with positioning your brand on the foundation of your story. Because if not, you're just like a logo, and you could be replicated. And somebody,
right,
like, I mean, look at the biggest influencers right now, like beyond LinkedIn. I'm talking about mega influencers,
right,
people like Gary Vee, people like Oprah. They're the whole reason that people follow them is because of their story.
right,
It's
right.
because they're imperfect. It's because
Yes,
um they're not a logo. It's because they're emotional. And yet when people try to position themselves, they do the opposite, because they don't want to
right.
be vulnerable.
And I'm glad you picked those two examples because when I think about Gary, I know he's got a I want to say multi-billion, but let's just say multi-million-dollar company
Yeah.
that employs many staff around the
Right.
world.
Right.
Oprah, nobody needs to be introduced to Oprah and her influence. Yet, both of them have really used their story, their name, and their brand to build those companies. And people, when I think Oprah,
Absolutely.
like I watched Soul before our talk today, I watched Soulful Sunday, right? And
Uh-huh.
it's my time to connect over breakfast with my wife, and she's like, "Can you get off that?" I'm like, "No, I need to," right? And what resonates with me is the stories that she brings on of people who have gone through pain. They're human. That's
Mm-hmm.
right. Like often, whether it's LinkedIn or any other platform that has a business aspect to it, you see the business, you see the
Right.
building, you
Mm-hmm.
see right the brand, the logo. But these days, in a time when most of us are not really leaving our homes and we're in front of these
Right.
virtual, we're a virtual audience and virtual consumers. I think we're looking for something a little more than the brick and mortar. We're looking for who's the person that
Right.
can motivate me to want to
Mm-hmm.
get up in the morning when the whole world feels like it's falling apart.
Right.
So when I
Who's
feel like I'm being
consistent?
buried alive, I can feel
Uh-huh.
like it's time to plant myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important. And I applaud you for doing that. I know I don't know if it was intentional. I don't know. So that's a question. I know if you woke up one day and said, "I'm going to do this," or if it felt right. Let me ask you that.
um when I really began, I knew that if I wanted different things in my life, like if I wanted to grow, if I wanted to be able to provide a better life for my daughter and for myself, and go where I wanted to go, when I wanted to go, with who I wanted to go, if I wanted to live an autonomous life, I had to do things differently. And one of the things that I knew I had to do differently was reach more people, because it's just numbers. If a million people see you, you're going to have a bigger chance of getting an opportunity than if a million people don't. So, my blue ocean strategy 2 years ago was, instead of, going on Instagram and posing in front of a mirror, like trying to create content or a brand around like my physical looks, um, which a lot of people my age were doing, I went to LinkedIn, where it was like, like a lot of people older than me, but stuff
Yeah,
like that. And I really just was like, I showed up with just being authentic. Like, especially, it was just good timing at the time, because LinkedIn video is taking off. And a lot of the people that were showing up on video at the time were showing up in suits. It was very like staged. And then here I come, and I come with a powerful message. But I'm like in like just like this, like in a
yeah.
sweater or whatever. I'm just myself. And that really, yeah, that really it stood out, and it resonated with people. And even when I started, like, my phone screen was cracked. I had like an Android, I had terrible audio. My first video, it's like the wind is like, you could barely hear me, the phone shaking. But after a week of my videos doing well, I was like, okay, maybe it's not a coincidence. I'm going to ask people why they're liking my content, cuz for me,
Mm,
I need to know, so that I could replicate that, like double down on why people are watching it, and then remove what's not working or what I shouldn't be doing, whatever. And I started asking, and they're like, yeah, the video is not that good, like the quality, but like it's what you're saying. And I was like, okay. So I just started saying more of it.
See, Shaneé, like, this is why I wanted to start Unfiltered, because to your point, it's about that authentic, no BS. This is what you get. And I love how you say that, you could have gone to a platform that engages with a more youthful audience, but it's all about the filters. No one goes on Instagram
Yeah,
before
I
they
felt
put
out of place.
right? But you came to a place that I think needed. And when I say youthful here, I'm not just talking about age, because we're all to a certain extent youthful, wanting to be. We have the desire to feel vibrant and energetic, and sometimes the clumsy suit just doesn't do it. It's okay. I like suits. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
but
me
you
too.
brought it, right? And it worked. Now here's something I want to call out, because you started off by saying a billion people, or was it a million people that you want to reach? I think you said a billion.
A billion.
Like a B.
A B.
Like in baby, like
a
the
big
best.
B.
Big B. Like, okay, so billion. All right, here it goes. Because you're not just playing a game, you know your stuff. And you reach millions. Give me the numbers here. A month, you reach 2.5 million.
No, I reached 25 million.
25 million a month.
Yeah.
Okay. So if anybody's kind of thinking, here's this person who's just coming on here,
and I started with nothing. Like I just started with my phone, even until now. So until last week, I hadn't even bought a camera. Yeah. Like I bought this camera last week. So I like 250 million views just with my iPhone.
Right. But see, people are craving that authenticity, and maybe even more so now, because the world is changing, and we've had enough. I have to say, enough bullshit. Like there's just enough bullshit out there, right? And it's frustrating, because you go on a network and you want to engage. And I think this is now where, again, I applaud you for, you may come across as very youthful, but you're a smart person. I mean, you were able to say, wait a minute, I'm putting out these videos. People are listening. Something's working. Let me ask. A lot of us forget that it's not just about, hey, video, go up into the world and into the cloud. You actually hold on to that cloud and you pull it back down and you say, wait a minute, what did I do well? What could I do better? What do I need to stop? Tell me about that reflection and that, because you've got awareness from A to Z and back around. So how is it that you've taken that awareness to bring business sense to it?
I mean, for me, I don't want to say for me it's common sense, but because I know for a lot of people, like it has to be like broken down. But for me, I was just like, I need to know why people are watching my videos, because if I don't know why, then I don't know how I could make them better. And I feel like maybe that's why I'm constantly searching for feedback. We're 7 weeks into Growth Academy, and from like the second week in, the third week in, I would call people, have personal conversations. In 7 weeks, we've reached over 40 countries. But I call them and I message them and I say, hey, what's the thing you love the most about this? And you think your training videos are the reason why they love it, and they do. And they love the fact that they're shorter, because I guess in a lot of other courses, they may be longer. Each of my trainings are like 5-6 minutes, and they're authentic. They're not like fake or whatever. They love that. But more than that, they love the community, which is why I love the fact that it's based on that. And then I'm asking them, like, what's one thing, like one spot that we can improve? And they'll tell me. And then I take that and I give it to my operations manager. And I said, hey, we need to improve this. Going into 2021, here's like our 10 spots where we need to improve. I want this to be the best online learning experience for high achievers that exists. Like, we start small, but like if we continue to deliver a great experience, we just continue to grow.
Who's inspired you? I know you mentioned a couple names already. Who's inspired you, and who continues to inspire you today?
My main mentor is actually Christopher Hummel, which I met through LinkedIn. Somebody had just watched my videos a few times, and he like reached out. He's like, hey, I have a friend local to your area that has a business. I want to connect you both. And I was like, sure, okay. And that's how we connected, just through somebody that watched my LinkedIn videos. But yeah, he's definitely like, my growth has been exponential just from learning from him. He really taught me that the premise of all growth is really just patience and consistency. Like that, and that's really what I was missing when I met him. Like, I was being consistent, but like my consistency like went up to a different level, just being influenced by him, because it's like every little thing that you do every day just like adds up to like the compound effect book, and you really see that. And I feel like people don't give themselves enough time. They want immediate results, and they don't even give themselves 90 days to see
Can
what
you,
could happen.
I gotta challenge you here. I love to dig a bit deeper. Can you give me an example of one of those learnings that maybe Chris shared with you that can benefit someone, some listener? What was it in the consistency that you changed that upped the game for you?
Like, so when I met Chris, maybe I would post on LinkedIn. Like, I would post a video every day, but it was just kind of like all over the place. My routine was kind of all over the place. Like, I would do it, but I have a toddler, and I was just like, kind of like chaos, like whatever. But when I met him, like, his first kind of thing that he taught me was, and again, like, I didn't meet him as like a mentor or a paid coach. Like, I'm just like listening and like absorbing like a sponge, applying. And I feel like that's another thing, like, to really have a mentor invest their time and energy into you, it's like your obligation to like do whatever teachings you learn, right? So you have to put them into application, or they're wasting their time. So it's like, think about like exactly what you want, like a 10-year goal. And like, I just did. I started writing exactly what I wanted. I got on a very strict routine for myself, like, where I learned to do more by 12 p.m. than most people do all day.
And that's important. That comes back to that self-awareness. And
Yeah.
I talk
Like,
about
I
on this
knew what
class.
my weaknesses were, and I
How
still
did
do. And I
you?
think that that's important.
How did
Mhm.
you continue to learn about your weaknesses? A lot of us like to think that we do, but
I saw my weaknesses because, like, just spending time with him, I would see where like I was lacking almost,
yeah.
like, to give you an example, like, I'm still lacking in this one is is like patience and like follow up, right? So when you talk about networking, like, Chris could network and give and give and give to somebody for 10 years, give opportunities, blah, 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 until they really like reciprocate. For me, it's like, I'm like a little bit more impatient. The fact that, like, I love giving and I love giving opportunities, but like, I don't want to say I give up on people quicker than him, but like, I feel like people are like takers at
Mm.
some point. You know what I mean? And it's just like, and he doesn't. He's just like, just get, people have patience. People come around, like, they learn. And I'm like, ah.
Well, I think the first step in recognizing our weaknesses is to turn them into strengths. That
Yeah,
self-awareness is what can help us get better. And we can't have an awareness of others if we don't have that awareness of ourselves first. So,
absolutely.
and I think maybe, when I'm sure you've done this already, when you start thinking, why are they takers, and why is it taking so long before they give back? Because we all question that in our
Mhm.
relationships, right? But I think that's part of that is the learning process and knowing that,
Right.
right? Because you can't control them, but you can control
Right.
yourself. And
Right. So that's like just one thing now, and I'm learning, like, it's a process, but like, Chris is like a master at networking, and it just really comes with this patience. Like, and I would see like lacking things, like he'll follow up, he'll just call people to see what they're doing every day. Like, just make friends for years, years, years. And it's like, I had to be more consistent. Like, I learned, I was like, okay, I need a schedule. I need to do this, I need to do that. But again, that comes with the premise of like, I'm always trying to be better. Like, I'm
Mm,
trying to be better today than I was yesterday. I'm trying to be better in 2021 than I was in 2020, because I know that the better I am, the more effective I am, the more opportunities I can seize. And then, the higher I rise, I could help more people.
Right. The more impact you're going to have, and the
Yeah,
easier and
exactly.
faster you're going to meet those
And the
billion
more I
people.
can give to others, and the more people I can reach and help and inspire. So it all comes down to really what you do with the time that you have every single day.
And that really just goes back to what you said earlier at the start of this session, is that, you know, we aren't here for, I saw a beautiful sunset yesterday and I posted on my Facebook. I said, you know, be grateful for every sunset. I'm the little prince. I see a
I
sunset
love
and
little,
I
oh
love
my
the little
gosh,
prince.
The
Yeah.
Little Prince
Oh yeah,
is one of
I
my
was going to
favorite
ask you about
books.
that earlier. It's one of, well, let me ask you, what is one of your favorite books?
It would honestly be like top 3.
Yeah.
The Little Prince is definitely like up there. I love the book Relentless. Have you read it?
No, by
So, it's by the personal trainer of Michael Jordan.
okay.
So he
Make a
was
note
like,
here.
yeah, it's called Relentless. He was so he tried to get into basketball, but like he didn't have the talent, and then he started like kind of personal training and stuff like that. And he sent like a letter to like all of the like management people at the team where Michael Jordan was playing to see how he could help some of the players, blah blah blah. Like no, and this goes to show greatness, right? So all of the players like rejected him and were like, nah, like we don't need you to get better. And the only person that called him was Michael Jordan, because he was constantly looking to get better and to see who could help him get better. So Michael Jordan, like this guy, when Michael Jordan, and they're like the same age. So this guy, when Michael Jordan gave him the opportunity for a meeting, you know, he was so broke, like he said that he left his shoes in the car during the meeting because he had holes in his shoes. So when Jordan opened the door and saw his socks, like his excuse was like, oh, I just didn't want to bring my shoes in your house. Like,
wow.
you know, like he made an excuse. But so Jordan was like, so how can you help me? And then he like told him a couple of things that they would do, whatever. And so Jordan was like, okay, well, I'll like a month or something. And like that month opportunity, they worked together for like 30 years or 20 years.
Wow.
And they became like best friends. Like, and then he worked with Kobe Bryant and he's worked with Dwayne Wade. And he basically writes about like there's different levels of greatness. So he talks about like, you know, the second level, you know, the second best level of greatness is somebody, he says, more like LeBron James, that like he's a winner, like he's like super great, kind of like Shaq too, like they're just like awesome. But the next level is be like Kobe Bryant and Jordan, where like Kobe Bryant, he said, like was actually more of this persona than Michael Jordan, because you have to remember Michael Jordan had a lot of natural physical propensities towards like, you know, his size, the size of his hands, like how he would jump to be the best. Kobe was like smaller, so like his hands, he had to work harder. And he said like Kobe Bryant was like the type of person that like he would win a championship and like 5:00 in the morning the next day he would be there for practice because he's already thinking about the next time. Right. You know, and like a lot of the other players, like they're great, but like if they would have this relentless like aspiration to be the best, they would reach it, their talent would soar to a different level. So
rest his soul in peace, you know.
Yes, rest his soul.
Yeah, but, I mean, that's a beautiful story, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's my second favorite. And then I'd say my third favorite would be a book called Iconic. Have you read that one by Scott McCain? Yeah.
By
Scott McCain.
Okay.
Yeah. So he talks about like, why do companies become iconic? Like, it's great to be known like in your industry, right? But like, what makes a company or a person become iconic? Like some people know Lil Wayne because he's a rapper. So if you listen to rap music, you may know Lil Wayne. But like everyone knows Jay-Z. Everyone knows Drake. You know, so what is it about these people, these companies that like they ascend beyond their industry? Like Apple is an iconic brand.
Mm-hmm.
Like somebody like Drake or Jay-Z would be iconic artists because even if you hate rap, you still know them.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes into that science and like what is it that he talks about the different levels. So like one of the levels before becoming iconic is like differentiation. You have to differentiate yourself before you could even reach the iconic level, and like how to differentiate yourself and your brand and stuff like that. And then like the ultimate level, and like he has like a pyramid, is iconic, and like how these companies reach there. And it's really based on kind of like the drive to become better every single day and to be obsessed with customer service experience, and like goes through it like with different stories after story, and how they can't just like, when they're an iconic brand, like iconic brands, when they are the best, like they don't stop. So he also gives examples of like how some companies were like at the top of their game and then they went under, you know, because they got comfortable. So it's a great book. You have to read it because anyone could apply it to their brand.
Well, the two books that you mentioned seem to have, it's almost as if they are written together because, you need to be
Yeah.
relentless. You need to keep getting better. You can't stop. You can't get too comfortable. You need to always think, how can I grow? How can, my son and I went for a bike ride yesterday, and he was telling me how his friend bikes 30 kilometers a week and how my son wanted to start biking to school. It was 14 ways back and forth. And I said, don't compare yourself to others. Compare
Right.
yourself to what you were yesterday and what
Correct.
you want to do today and what you want to do tomorrow. And, to me, that's the first place because it's so easy to start looking around and comparing myself to others and thinking, oh, I'm not doing what this person is doing. But somebody's probably looking at me and thinking, I'm not doing what Muhammad is doing. Whenever people reach out and say, well, how can you do this? I'm like, doing what? And then,
I know.
I reach out to somebody else. I'm like, how can you do this? They're like, doing what? Which brings me to what I want to ask you, because you're reflective, you're humble. Obviously, you love to read and you love to get better. And you've gone through personal challenges and experiences, and you haven't let that hold you back. And you've got this eagerness to want to grow, but also to apply that growth to help others rise. And I mean,
100%.
this is why I thought, okay, I'm gonna reach out to Shaneé. She's gonna answer my right. And thank you, by the way, because a lot
Yeah,
of
of
the
course.
times, right, these platforms, you've got untouchables on these platforms. I'm always humbled to connect with people because the more I can share these stories, the more impact we can have on the world, and the more impact the world needs right now in goodness and positivity, and to know that we can make this world better. We're not going to wait for others.
100%.
We can do it better. It's raining, but I'll get my own umbrella. I'll carry my
Yeah.
own weather. I can be in control of my world so that I can make the world a better place. And I truly believe that. And you talk about getting better. And I want to ask you if you could share a story or piece of advice or a learning that you've shared or been told to help others get better. That's what I call the unfiltered thought of the week. What would you,
Okay.
Shaneé Moret, share with others to help them consistently, as Chris taught you, to always up the ante and always be consistent and always get better? What could you share to help others get better?
So the first thing I would say where people need to start, and where I started, is you have to keep the promises you make to yourself. You have to start keeping the promises you make to yourself, because like we always make these promises. So like we're going to start, the diet on Monday, and then Monday rolls around and they don't start the diet, or we're going to exercise on Monday. And eventually it's like, we don't even, so when we think about like, we're going to start an online business, or we're going to start posting every day on Monday, we don't even believe ourselves at that point. So where I think everyone needs to start, because this is how you can cultivate belief in yourself. And when you believe in yourself, then like your vision can grow, is keeping every single promise you make to yourself. Tiny promises, like I'm going to wake up tomorrow at 6, do it. I'm going to eat this for lunch, do it. Because the more you don't, it's like you can't like fake yourself, and then you fall into that vicious cycle of like waiting to next Monday and wasting time, and like you kind of like don't even believe in the integrity that you have with your own word, and you can't escape that. So I think that's where a lot of people need to start. It's like every single little promise where it's like, okay, I'm going to drink more water, or I'm going to trade, soda for water. Do it. Because when you do that, then you'll be like, wow, I really did it. Like, what else can I do? And then that's how like tiny things can plant seeds of belief that can really lead your life to change. So
love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing back the belief that even when things seem really dark, just plant some positivity and faith, because you can grow.
Absolutely.
You can, I want to say that we don't have a choice. To go back to what you said earlier about, change, it's going to happen, but, growth is optional. And I think we do have a choice. And it's one of the greatest powers that we have. Respond to things around us, respond to change by choosing to grow. And, this opportunity with you today, it's an opportunity to grow. And I want to make sure people reach out to you, because that's also an opportunity to grow. And whatever you keep doing, keep shining, because people need that light. People need that warmth, because that's the only way the seed's going to come out of the ground and just rise towards the sky. So keep shining. Thank you
so
very much for being my unfiltered guest today.
I loved it. Thank you. This is actually one of the best podcast conversations I've ever had.
Thank you very much. Wow. Thank you. I got more than writing. I've got that straight from your mouth. Thank you so much. Yeah. Stay blessed. Have a wonderful Sunday. Take care.
You too. Ciao.
Thank you for listening to Unfiltered, the show about authentic leadership and personal growth. Like what you heard? Click subscribe, share it, and tell a friend about it. And don't forget to leave a rating.